Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of ATDC Radio, and this is going to be a fun one. I'm joined with Ashley Messer, and he is with Transitiv. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get too far into things, tell us a little bit about Transitiv. How are you serving folks?
Yeah, Transitiv is a customer data platform that helps franchise and network businesses. So franchises, franchisees, and auto dealers.
Auto dealers? How did they get in the mix?
History. They're one of the largest dollar-wise and one of the oldest franchise models in existence. So it's what almost every franchise network aspires to.
Oh, really? I did not know that. Yep. Now, what's your background in franchising? You and your co-founder have a background in the franchise world?
Yeah. So my partner Christian has long background, 8 years plus in franchising. He's started a couple of digital agencies that serve franchise businesses and grown them, and then I've worked in marketing technology for a little over 10 years, and my background is in that with serving auto dealers for their digital marketing needs.
Now, when you're dealing with the digital marketing needs of a franchisee, franchisor, or car dealer, how have you seen that evolve over time? It just seems that 10 years ago, probably when your partner started, it was a different kind of landscape.
Yeah. So the fun thing about it is that it's a landscape that's evolving constantly. And I would say that, some ways that it evolves are positive and some aren't so positive. If you had asked me 10 years ago if I thought marketing would be simpler and easier and more fully connected 10 years down the road, I would have said, 100%, because it's the only thing that makes sense. But here we are 10 years later, and digital marketing is more complicated. You have more channels. You have more things to do and focus on if you're a marketer. And so your job in a lot of ways has gotten harder. But with that, you've got a lot more opportunity than you've ever had.
Now, there was a time with marketing and advertising that people were doing a lot of gut feel guessing of how to do this, how to reach the audience. That there was a lot of more traditional media, billboards and TV ads and radio in the traditional sense. Now it seems like you can get a lot more information about the people that are engaging with your brand in today's world. If they're, on their phone, on the different social media platforms, there's a lot of information out there, and Transitiv, I believe, kind of helps kind of hone in on that and learn from that in a pretty amazing way.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that's extremely exciting about what we're doing is that what we found is that most brands actually have a treasure trove of data already.
Where's this at?
Inside their own organization. So they've got a CRM, they've got an ERP system, they've got an order management system, however their model works. Mm-hmm. The challenge is that they have valuable information about their customers spread out over, 5+ systems. And few, if any of those systems, except maybe the email system, are actually owned by the marketer.
So they're all third-party kind of services that they've been using?
Not just third-party services. They're services that are owned by a different function inside the business, right? Mm-hmm. So like CRM, it's usually owned by sales.
Right.
And a lot of people lump sales and marketing in together, but they're really not the same thing. They work together. But so the marketer, they need all this customer data to be able to do marketing effectively. And there's all these opportunities in all these platforms, like your Google, your Facebook, et cetera, where you can leverage your own customer data on there. But if you can't connect it and get a picture of the entire customer journey from the data that you have, it's really hard to do that.
And it's a missed opportunity?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So now how does Transitiv help?
So basically we'll connect to all of those systems for you. It doesn't cost you anything additional. We'll bring all that data in. We won't force any changes on the existing systems that you have. And then we'll get you one unified view of the customer. And then we'll basically take all the heavy lifting out of building your segments and all the AI that's involved in that, and we'll do it for you automatically. And then we'll let you focus on the core marketing strategy, and we'll handle the integration with the media platforms and getting the data in there, getting the data back out, and keeping it refreshed.
Now, you use the word you a couple of times, and as you mentioned, the you is different people, right? Like the salesperson has a different need than the marketing person who has a different need.
So we work pretty much exclusively for the marketer.
So for the marketer. So you're able to take everybody's data from all the different parts of the company and then give it to the marketer so it's more actionable and they can get the most out of it.
Exactly.
But you're not disrupting the salesperson and any of the work they're doing.
Exactly, because they've got things that they're focused on day in and day out, and they don't need any distraction or disruption in their business.
Now, how did this idea come about? Like, I know that both you and your partner had worked in the franchise industry in a variety of roles. How did it get honed into this software?
So, in the process of working in digital marketing and marketing technology for 10 plus years, one of the biggest asks in all the other startups and businesses I've been in from customers would constantly be like, hey, I've got this data from this system and I want to use it for marketing. And there really wasn't a way to get that data in consistently, keep it updated and fresh, and do anything. And so the need for a tool like Transitiv or a customer data platform really came, I saw it firsthand and said, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if we could have a tool that can ingest data in it from any source, in any format, unify it, standardize it, and then automate the advanced data analysis on it, and then use it for execution.
So now, how did you and your partner get together? How did you just meet just organically through your work?
Somewhat. So his last agency, he was actually a customer.
Oh.
And he used our software and resold it. And at a certain point in time, he kind of realized, like, hey, wait a second, I'm running an agency services business, which was going great. But so there's something to this customer data platform thing, and people are really responding to it. And so long story short, he sold his agency, and we struck a deal for him to join Transitiv, and it's been fantastic ever since.
So now, for people who aren't familiar with kind of the franchise industry, can you talk about the scope of that? Like, what does that look like? How many franchises are there? Is this something that there's a lot of them that we're not noticing?
Yes. The franchise industry is absolutely huge. So just round numbers, and, people from the IFA, the Franchising Trade Association, they're going to probably correct me, but there's something like 5,000 franchise brands in the United States, covering something like 800,000 locations.
Wow.
Right. And so if you think about a franchise business, first of all, you might think of like a giant franchise chain, like
McDonald's or Subway, or like some of these.
Exactly.
Right.
So if you take McDonald's, Subway, Burger King, things that have true national brand awareness, you're subtracting maybe like 150,000 of those 800,000 locations.
The rest are like kind of smaller, regional, local.
Exactly. Yeah. So it represents a large chunk of that 29 to 30 million small and medium sized businesses that are out there. And so that's why we focus on that segment, is because, excuse me, you're working with people that are really out there living the American dream and trying to make a better life for themselves and their family.
Now, do you find have you defined your sweet spot in terms of, okay, this works best for B2C type franchises, or this works best for franchises that only have 50 locations right now? Like, do you have kind of an idea of the optimal one, or is this good for anybody, any franchisor?
Going into it, I would have thought there would have been, a perfect niche inside of franchising. But so far, we've got brands that have well over 1,000 locations, and we've got brand new brands that have, 18 locations, and it's their first year as a fully fledged franchise. And we're seeing success across the board.
Now, when you implement the software, how is it for the franchisor to implement? Do they start it with 1 or 2 locations, or is this something they roll out the whole system?
Yeah. So a lot of them will actually do that sort of like, well, let's test and pilot this, and excuse me, and they'll start by rolling it out on a limited number of franchisees, sort of their most digitally savvy folks, and their approach is like, well, look, because the franchisor, they're just trying to add value for the franchisee, right? And give them some benefit, some brand lift out of the franchise network. And so their approach is more or less like, okay, let's put this with our most savvy folks, our most savvy franchisees, and if it passes the test with them, then we'll roll it out wider.
Mm-hmm. And then how long is a test for them to see meaningful results?
Usually happens within 3 months or so.
Really? So in 90 days or so, they're able to see like, oh, this is much better than what we had previously?
Yeah. Usually within 90 days, we're being asked to expand services for them, either into a different line of marketing or with expanded number of locations.
Now, when you say lines of marketing, are you talking about the like pay-per-click or Facebook ads, things like that?
More at the strategy level. So like maybe we'll start helping them with franchise development, which is the process of selling new franchise locations.
That's the franchisor getting new franchisees.
Exactly, right. And then so we may start there and then go into actual location marketing or analytics at the location level or vice versa. Our approach is really to when we start a relationship with a brand is really to try to understand where they're at and what their needs are, and then tailor our solution around serving those needs.
So can you share an example where maybe there was a franchise that had maybe 10 to 20 locations? You came in and maybe helped them locally. Did the local franchisees all of a sudden see a bump in terms of new customers, more engagement?
Yeah. So we've worked with you guys may not be familiar with this brand because they serve primarily women, but it's something called a blow dry bar. Mm-hmm. And it's I don't know if I'm allowed to say the exact brand name.
You don't have to name any names, but just an idea of what type of activity you were doing and what kind of result they were getting. Yeah,
basically we were connecting to their point of sale system. We were finding out who their most valuable customers are, and they had no idea. So
they were dealing and meeting, and they knew the people. They knew Mary and they knew Sue, but they didn't kind of understand the persona of Mary and Sue. Or
they had at each location, it turned out they would have a core group of maybe 20 people that produced something like 65% of their revenue.
So like heavy users of the service.
Yeah. So they're SaaS is eating the world. It's not just software. It's SaaS models in general, right? With that Mark Andreessen quote. And so that particular chain has a SaaS model for blowouts. And so their biggest subscribers.
So it's kind of a membership.
Yeah. You can pay like $99 a month. You can pay like $600 a month. And
go every day like that.
Yeah.
How many times can you get your hair blown?
I'm not going to say that I'm an expert in the menuing systems at blow dry bars, because I've never been to one, and I've tried not to tell my wife that we work with them.
Right.
But yeah, basically it's sort of tiered escalating service consumption where, they just had these, this halo effect of folks that would start with like a bridal party and expand from there. And so we could show them that, and we could market just to their halo customers. And we could also market to those folks that were in their list that seemed to come one time, maybe two times, and then never come back, right? So people that had low frequency, low recency.
So like how would you help them kind of market to that group that okay, so I get the heavy user part. You want to be super nice to your super fans, but that person that came just randomly or once or twice, how do you move them up kind of the ladder?
Well, that's the interesting part, because it can't be over stressed that the ability to actually separate them cleanly is not really easy to do. And so just the fact that we could tell the franchise, like, hey, look, here's a way to speak to just the folks that seem to try your services 1 or 2 times and don't come back. That's a huge win for them by itself.
Just by itself.
Because then the marketing strategy, they're all expert marketers, right? They're really good at like price, place, promotion, all those things in marketing.
So just helping them identify them was extremely valuable.
And so now we can take those, we can push them out to Google. And so you can send a different message, a different promotion to just the folks that you want to retry, right? And you can take an apologetic strategy, you can take a coupon strategy, whatever you want to do. And then you can say something completely different to your Halo customers.
And then you can then market to people that look like your Halo customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the benefits that we get out of this too, right? Like we all know that Google and Facebook and these like giant megalopoly sort of media publishers have treasure troves of data on every American, right?
Right.
And so what we're able to do is leverage the fact that they have all this extra attribute data. And so what we'll do is send them up a list of segmented customers. And then we'll ask them to expand the audience with their data. And we don't really have a lot of insight into what that is and exactly the secret sauce of how they do it, but giving them the seed audience, that is, this is who we want.
Right. You're almost there.
Give us more people like this. Well, the nice part is we don't have to know.
Right. It's not.
And in a lot of ways, I don't want to know.
Right.
But
for that franchisee in Montana, that's very helpful information, right? Because now they can identify the other 50 people that match the profile they have, and then they have a shot at them. That's right. We're giving franchisees and franchisors the ability to get extra value out of all of the data that the Google and Facebooks of the world and
have.
They already have this data. You're just giving it back to them in a way that's more actionable.
We're connecting it all. They have all this data. It's spread out all over the place. We're connecting it all and putting it in a place where the marketer can take action on it.
And then what does it look like from the marketer standpoint? How is their day different when Transitiv is part of their kind of tech stack?
Well, it's a lot simpler, right? Because we answer those high-level burning questions for marketers in a very, very simple way. What does it look like? Is there a dashboard that says this is, if I can say, okay, best customers, and then you're giving me these are the attributes, and this is how I can just plug and play it into my Facebook ads now? What does it look like from my standpoint? So when you're looking at segmentation, there's absolutely a dashboard, and we show you very cleanly separated into 5 categories according to some, very classical catalog marketing strategies in terms of like recency, frequency, and monetary value. And so you get all of your data pushed into those segments, and then you can say, okay, well, look, our 555s, which is like the Halo type customers in an RFM model like that. That's only 10% of our business. That's only 10% of our customer count. And it looks like our ones are 60% of our customer count. I'm like, okay, let's say something different to both of those. And it just becomes very easy. Like, okay, well, let's click next and let's build a list off of the ones, and let's click next and let's build a list off of the 5s. Mm-hmm. So now what are some of the mistakes you see franchisors and franchisees making? Is it that they don't have a robust enough email list, or they're not doing a good job in that area, or you think everybody's got that now? If I would call it a mistake, I don't want to call it a mistake because it's the entire reason we exist, right? But the one missed opportunity that they have is if you think about the history of data and collected data, we've collected more data last year, the last 2 years than we've collected in all of human history, right? And that's sort of like 2-year sliding window keeps going forward. So the one key thing that all of these businesses struggle with is they have so much data and so little ability to do anything with it. And so basically our whole model at Transitiv is helping them do something useful with it, right? So now what is the easiest way for them to start capturing data to make usable so they can get the most out of Transitiv? Well, like I say, most of them are already capturing a lot of data, and they don't really have a clear idea a lot of times of exactly what kind of asset they've built up internally. And so there, in terms of easy ways like newsletter signups, things that build your email list, and then being able to attach that throughout every other system in your organization. That's the part where they struggle. It's not actually the collection; it's the being able to link it all together.
So now, is part of the Transitiv offering your own kind of CRM and all that stuff, or is this kind of a bolt on to their existing whatever they have? You're kind of agnostic, and they just kind of play nicely with whatever they're using.
Yeah, so we're not a CRM. CRM companies are actually our key partners for us, as are all the point of sale and existing folks. So we're totally agnostic to whatever CRM they use, and we'll connect, pull data out of it. We don't force any changes back on those systems because our goal is, it's really hard to sell something and come in and say, hey, the first thing you need to do is just
throw everything you had
throw everything away, disrupt your entire business. Right. Sound great? That's as much as that might be a great thing to do in some cases, that's not a sales strategy
real
that
world.
succeeds.
It's hard to sell that. So now for you, what do you need more of right now?
More of right now. That's a good question. We're pretty focused on our core engineering team. At the moment, we're kind of scaling really fast. So for us, a lot of our focus is on infrastructure optimization, things like that. We've got a sales process that's pretty good and pretty repeatable, but that, places strains on the rest of our business.
Right.
So
as you get the new opportunities,
exactly,
you got to start serving and fulfilling.
That's what we spend most of the time managing.
Now, how'd you get involved with ATDC?
We filled out the contact form on the
website.
That was it? That was the beginning of the journey, I would say.
Had either one of you worked with ATDC previously in your other kind of iterations?
Never.
So this is the first time?
First time.
So how has it been? It
has been great. And the screening process is really rigorous, I would say. It was, we've been through, we raised a venture round in 2019, and ATDC, I can tell you, has a tougher screening round than most venture capital firms.
But was it helpful to be an ATDC company? Did that help you raise money, or was that something that it didn't matter because your product and service is so strong?
They happened kind of at the same time. And so in the process of raising a round, we were able to go to Venture Atlanta. And I think in terms of ATDC, they still put us through a really, really rigorous screening process. But being a Venture Atlanta, presenting company was really helpful in that,
right,
and gave us a good leg up, I think.
Do you feel like ATDC will be a good resource for you in terms of getting more talent and tapping into the
100%? Yeah.
And that's probably one of the main drivers of why you're here.
Completely. Yeah. So the main reasons why, we wanted to do the ATDC program was, engineering talent access to Georgia Tech, right? Georgia Tech's like, West Coast VCs are funny. They'll ask you like, well, you're going to be able to hire anybody back there in those backwoods?
I know, in the outhouse,
exactly.
They think we're like the Beverly,
like the Beverly Hillbillies.
Right.
They don't say that, but it's pretty clear that's what they think.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, we've got, basically a top 5, research institution just pumping out.
And let them think that we're struggling.
Yeah. So better access to talent, and then also the entrepreneur network and introductions. And, I feel like on my way to get some of this wonderful Waffle House coffee every morning, I can almost talk to somebody that can help me with almost anything I need every day.
And Atlanta's a good franchisor market as well. There's a lot of franchises here.
It is huge. Absolutely huge. Yeah.
So there's a lot of resources here in town for you guys.
Yeah. I don't know that we could have picked a better place to do this business. I wish I could tell you that we picked it this way on purpose, but the fact is we just happen to be here.
And then for you, as you go forward, you've completed a round. You're looking for more funds right now, or you're right now just kind of building out the team and the just kind of expansion?
Thankfully, we're not looking for a round of funding because that's a very time-consuming
Right. That
process.
was a job unto itself, right?
It maybe too, yeah. And so right now we're focused on execution and scaling, and just proving out our milestones.
So now, what's the funnest part for you?
The funnest part for me, it's basically just like the fact that this thing that was fundamentally just scratching a personal itch, turns out other people had the same itch, and just getting to keep scratching it, I guess. So
now, if somebody wanted to learn more, what's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
The best way to get a hold of us is to
website
transitiv.io. Just take the E off of the end, and just email sales@transitiv.io.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right. This is Lee Cantor for Stone Payton. We will see you all next time on ATDC Radio.